Hey everyone, welcome to Writer's Block. Again, I'm Kristen, and spoiler, the reason I'm holding up a copy of my novel, The Revisionary, is because our challenge today is giving you the opportunity to write your own back cover copy. And the reason that's going to be our challenge is because our topic today is how to write tightly, or how to write simply and effectively. Because what happens when a reader reads a back cover copy while they're browsing in a bookstore and they're not interested? Oh, they just put it back on the shelf. And that's definitely not what we want them to do with our stories. So we're going to talk about some tips for writing simply, some common pitfalls that we want to avoid, and then we'll dive right into our challenge today. So I'm so glad you're here. Grab something to write with, and let's get started. The challenge to write simply truly is a lot harder than it sounds. But before we get to our topic, I want to start off with the word of the day, and this one's quite a mouthful. Obfuscate. Do you know what it means? Or maybe think about it this way. What other words does it sound like? I know one that comes to my mind is obscure, which is very close to the meaning. Because according to dictionary.com, obfuscate means to confuse, bewilder, or stupefy, to make obscure or unclear, to darken. And that is the exact opposite of what we want to do with our writing. We don't want our words to get in the way. Remember, our goal isn't to impress readers, it's to make our ideas clear. It's to let them get lost in the story, not stumble over our writing styles. So that brings us to the first rule of good writing: clarity. And remember, we're going to be talking a little bit, or pulling some of our information from the book Creative Writing for People Who Can't Not Write. And I really liked this quote. It said, "Clear writing and clear thinking go together. Say what you mean. That's clarity." In other words, don't use a fancy, flashy word when a simple word will do. Don't obfuscate. There's our word of the day. Another important rule of good writing is brevity. So, in other words, probably some of you are familiar with, writing assignments in high school or maybe college, and sometimes it's frustrating when we see that word limit, right? But there's a reason those word counts are in your assignments, because it helps you to write tightly. It helps you to write simply and see if you can pack all the most important information you can into a limited amount of space. So a piece of writing should be no longer and wordier than necessary. And maybe you're thinking, okay, whatever, fine, I'll follow the word counts for school. But creative writing projects also have different word count guidelines. And I found this example. This is from writingforums.org. And these are just some examples of how even the publishing industry has word counts. And yes, they're a lot bigger than the ones maybe in your creative writing or English class assignments. But I just wanted to share this with you for an example of how it's really important to write to your audience and to those specific needs. So how do we write clearly and concisely? So here's some do's and don'ts. We want to use active verbs, not passive ones. And in case you're unfamiliar or a little fuzzy about what that means, basically an active verb is one where your subject is doing the action. The boy learned to play. Versus a passive is the subject is being acted upon. The boy was taught to play guitar. It's, first off, you see there's more words involved with passive, and it's just not as clear. Who taught him, In that case, the emphasis is on the teacher, and we don't know who the teacher was. So, although there can be a time and a place for passive voice, active is much tighter. We also want to avoid jargon, slang, and cliche phrases. And I included this example. Maybe you'll recognize it from a very popular Disney movie. I am disinclined to acquiesce to your request. Anybody recognize that? It's from Pirates of the Caribbean, where Barbossa is telling that to Elizabeth. In other words, no, she can't leave the ship. So the word no is all that needed to be said, but they use that fancy language instead. And of course, it was appropriate tongue-in-cheek for the scene, but just an example of how too many words confuse the meaning instead of make it clear. We also want to remove unnecessary adverbs. See if you can spot the ones in this sentence. I really think we should quickly run to see the very lonely lady. Oof. That's a lot of adverbs. We can just say, I think we should run to see the lonely lady. If we're running, it's going to be quick, so we can take off quickly. That's redundant. And really and very are typically very unnecessary. So oftentimes what I tell students and I tell other writers is, get all your ideas down on paper first. But when you're editing, that's when you can go back and proofread for these mistakes, whether you're replacing active verbs with passive ones or cutting out cliches or adverbs. That's to be done in the editing process. So don't try to panic when you're first getting your ideas down. No, just get them down. And then in the editing phase, that's when you can come and make some of these changes. And then just as a reminder, never use a long word when a short one will do. I'm ravenously famished. You could just say I'm hungry, right? Or if you wanted to be a little showy, I'm ravenous or I'm famished. But I'm hungry. That's simpler and probably more appropriate in most cases. So as I was telling you about before, the prime practice for tight writing is our back cover copy because, again, it has to capture the reader's attention and interest in a short amount of time. And you have that limited space. Max word count should really be 150. Less is better probably, just because it's gonna give you a chance to use a variety of font sizes, like you see maybe on my back cover copy here. You've got more of a bold hook and then your the additional copy below it. But yeah, 150 words isn't a lot. So if you can write tightly and grab your reader's attention in that many words, wow, that's an accomplishment. And really, the back cover copy is some of the most important copy you will write for your book because, like we were talking about earlier, if a reader isn't interested, they're never going to give your story a chance. So that is going to be the activity for today. And again, although I can't obviously read everybody's back cover copy, if you want to share maybe your hook or a sentence that you think is very well written, please add it to the comments for this video or comment to me through my blog website, and I would love to see some of your work in progress. And just by way of an extra challenge, we were, again, wanting not to obfuscate, I'm giving you this excerpt from that book I was telling you about. And the challenge is to rewrite this 4-line sentence in 6 words. And it is possible. If you think you figure it out, please message me and I would be very proud because this is a tangled piece of writing. Well, that's all for now. Have fun with the challenge of writing your own back cover copy or untangling this ridiculous sentence. And yeah, till next time, have a great day.